Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever felt that weird shift as summer ends? Suddenly you just want to slow down, but everything around you is still pushing you to, well, keep going. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place today. We're taking a deep dive, not just into the calendar, but into the actual architecture of time itself through a really fascinating lens. We're looking at the foundational structure of traditional Chinese cosmology, specifically something called the 24T nodes. These aren't months, they're these 15-day periods tracking energetic shifts. And right now we're hitting a really crucial one. It's the autumn equinox, which the sources we're looking at called Chuan.
Yeah, and it's so important for you, the listener, to grasp that these systems weren't just, quaint ways to track farming seasons. They were and are incredibly sophisticated holistic energy maps. So our mission today is really to decode what this specific shift, Sharon, is telling us. It's way beyond just noticing the temperature dropping slightly. It's about recognizing this fundamental tilt in the entire annual energy system. And this tilt, well, it demands a pretty significant physiological response from us. It impacts how we rest, how we move, and maybe most importantly, how we gather our internal resources.
Exactly. And when you look at the source texts, the core principle for this exact period, Chuen, is stated with this beautiful, almost stark precision. It's like a code. It says, the annual yang has receded, and at the same time, the annual yin will be established. That's not just poetry, right? That's a technical description.
Absolutely technical. It's describing a universal event, a cosmic shift that dictates how we should be preparing our bodies, our health, really, for the entire colder half of the year.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's start big with the cosmological shift itself. What's happening on that grand scale?
Right. So to really get the importance of the autumn equinox, Chuen, we should probably take just a second to appreciate this framework of the 24 keynotes. Imagine the whole year, not cut into 12 months, but into exactly 24 segments. Each one is about roughly 15 days long.
Okay. 24 distinct energetic periods.
Precisely. And this system comes from meticulously tracking the sun's apparent position in the sky. It reflects this deep, ancient, often agrarian understanding that every couple of weeks, the actual solar energy hitting the planet changes in a subtle but meaningful way. So these nodes, they tell us what nature is doing energetically. And the core idea is, if we know what nature's doing, we know what we should be doing to stay in harmony.
And Chuen, the autumn equinox, sits right in the middle of that cycle, like the exact halfway point.
It's the absolute midpoint. Think 180 degrees around the circle. The defining characteristic of this node, Chuen, is balance. Equal day, equal night. But, and this is crucial, only for a moment.
Ah, okay, so it's a pivot point, not a stable state.
Exactly. Up until this date, the yang energy, that dominant outward solar force, it's been declining since the summer solstice, sure. But at Chuen, something changes. The decline doesn't just continue, it accelerates and fundamentally shifts its character. The sources literally describe it as the moment the sun is officially going away. It's actively hiding and preparing for the winter. It's not just fading, it's retreating.
Wow, hiding. That language is powerful. It implies intention almost.
It does. And that's why that technical description we mentioned earlier, the annual yang has receded, is so loaded. It's not just a flowery way of saying the days are getting shorter. It means that dominant, outward, stimulating, expansive energy, the force that fueled everything in spring and summer, well, it's now officially drawing inward. It's reducing its influence on the surface of the planet, on us. Yeah. It's actively giving ground to yin.
Okay, so yang recedes, and then the other half of that equation, the annual yin, will be established.
Will be established. And again, we have to stress, this isn't passive. Yin isn't just what's left over when yang goes away. This is the active establishment, the rise of the opposing force, the contracting, cooling, consolidating force. Now, for someone maybe new to this kind of language, this yin and yang stuff, they might just think, okay, hot versus cold.
Right. Or activity versus rest. Simple binaries.
And those correspondences are a decent starting point, definitely. Hot, cold, activity, rest, light, dark. They work. But for a deep dive like this, we need to go a bit, well, deeper. What's the real high-level distinction here?
Yeah, what's the core energetic difference we should be grasping?
That's a great question. I think the real insight beyond just hot, cold is the difference between depth and surface. That's key. Yang is the outward expression, is the function, the output, the heat we feel, the light we see, all the activity happening on this surface. It's expansive. Yin, on the other hand, is the resource beneath that surface. It's the substance, the material, the density. It's the quiet, the stillness, the potential energy being stored up for the next cycle of life. It's the difference between spending energy and saving it.
Okay, depth versus surface, expenditure versus storage. That makes sense. So spring and summer were all about yang phenomena expenditure, that feeling of being stimulated, active,
Hmm.
ideas bubbling up, wanting to get things done, launch stuff, be out there, engage. That's the yang phase, spending that stored energy.
Exactly. That was the time for it. But now, as we hit Chuen and move into the autumn-winter half of the year, the cosmic construction, the imperative, flips completely. The entire macro energy cycle is now telling us, demanding really, that we start quieting things down, and not just physically, like staying indoors more. It means mentally, emotionally too. We need to start slowing down the pace, reflecting more, and allowing everything that was in that full outward swing during summer to start to
Well, the word the sources often use is coalesce.
coalesce. Okay, that word feels important, like it's packed with meaning. Can we unpack that a bit? What exactly is supposed to be coalescing, gathering, condensing?
Yeah, coalesce implies gathering things together and condensing them into a usable, denser form. Think about it practically. All through spring and summer, the yang phase, maybe you launched new projects at work, you were taking in huge amounts of information from outside, maybe started some new health routines, had lots of social interactions. These are all expansive outward activities, right?
Yeah, spreading energy outwards. Okay, so now the mandate is to bring all that outward moving energy back home, back inside. This is the time to gather up all those loose threads. It means reviewing those projects you started, maybe putting some on hold, consolidating. It means synthesizing all that information you absorb, turning raw data into actual understanding, into wisdom. It means making conscious choices about which relationships or activities you want to nurture deeply, requiring focused energy, versus those that maybe need less surface attention right now. And really importantly, it means consolidating your physical health, gathering your vital energy.
So if I was, say, launching 3 new initiatives back in July, the message now isn't launch a fourth. It's more like stop the launch sequence on anything new and maybe take a hard look at the resources those first 3 are using. Prepare for a quieter, more strategic phase.
That's exactly it. You're shifting from outward action and expansion to inward reflection and resource storage. And the goal of aligning with this isn't just, a nice philosophical idea. It's presented as a necessity. If the macro energy, the sun literally hiding, the days shortening, is telling the entire natural world to contract, slow down, gather inward, then we have to make sure our internal environment, our human microcosm, mirrors that external environment. If we don't, if our internal world tries to stay in summer mode while the external world is shifting hard into autumn, we create this intense internal friction, and that friction has consequences.
Okay, internal friction. That leads us right into the next part. The physiological side. What actually happens inside our bodies if we ignore this cosmic memo and try to keep that summer pace going right through the equinox?
Right. This is where the sources get quite emphatic. They describe this specific transition time, Chuen, as critical. Not just important, but critical. If we refuse to recognize this energetic shift, this mandate of yin rising, we essentially fail to build the necessary foundation for deep health through the winter. It's the failure to make this transition now, right at this pivot point, that the sources suggest sets up many of the common problems people experience later in the colder months, the fatigue, the lowered immunity, things like that.
Wait, hang on. That sounds a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? Most people think, you get run down or sick later in winter, maybe January or February when it's been cold and dark for a while. Why are the sources pointing to this specific moment, the autumn equinox transition, as the primary point of failure?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it highlights a key principle. It's about the exhaustion trap. Think of it this way. If we stubbornly stay in that high-energy, outward-focused yang gear, trying to accelerate or just maintain high speed right through the equinox crossing, we're essentially fighting the natural flow of the entire system. It's like, imagine trying to drive a high-performance race car, but keeping it stuck in first gear while trying to go highway speed, or maybe a better analogy for downshifting. Keeping it in high gear while trying to climb a really steep hill. What happens?
You burn out the engine. Or the clutch. Something gives way.
Exactly. You burn out the engine, you overheat, you deplete resources inefficiently. Your body senses the external environment is changing, cooling, condensing, demanding rest and consolidation. But our minds, our habits, our societal pressures, they often try to override that signal. Keep going, push harder.
And that overriding action, that fight against the natural flow, that's the internal friction we were talking about, that's where we start exhausting resources that we don't have.
Precisely. That's the core of the exhaustion trap. Spring and summer were the appropriate times for expenditure. We were drawing on the energy stored from the previous winter's rest, plus the abundant yang energy from the environment. But now, those readily available resources are theoretically spent or need replenishment. If we continue to spend at the same rate, if we keep pushing outward, we start drawing on deeper reserves. We tap into the emergency funds, energetically speaking, the resources that are meant for fundamental cellular repair, deep immunity, long-term resilience.
Okay, dipping into the principle, not just the interest.
That's a great way to put it. And the most immediate, the most specific consequence that the sources consistently flag when this happens, when we resist the downshift, relates directly to our ability to rest deeply.
Ah, yes, the sleep crisis. I think a lot of people recognize this instinctively. That feeling when the seasons turn, usually right around now, and suddenly the quality of your sleep just seems to fall off a cliff.
Yes.
Or you wake up, maybe you slept for 8 hours according to the clock, but you feel completely unrefreshed, like you barely slept at all.
That's the classic symptom. The depth and the restorative quality of sleep suffer immensely if we resist this downward-inward transition. The body is trying to pull energy inward for deep repair during sleep. But if the mind and the nervous system are still wired for outward action, still buzzing, sleep becomes shallow, fragmented, less effective. But here's the flip side. We absolutely have to reframe this. It's not just a problem, it's also a massive opportunity.
How so?
Because as the sun goes away, as the dark hours naturally increase, nature herself is actively giving us more yin time. More time designated for rest, repair, and consolidation. This is the prime time, the optimal window, to consciously hook into that opportunity, as the sources say.
Yeah.
Our bodies are biologically pre-programmed to respond to the changing light cycles. We naturally start producing more melatonin, for instance, and other restorative condensing hormones for a longer duration each night.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key, we only fully benefit if we consciously allow and support this process. If we slow down our external environment, reduce stimulation in the evenings, and signal to our bodies, okay, it's time to go deep now.
And if we don't, if we keep the bright lights on, stay mentally revved up, push ourselves physically late into the evening, we miss that window.
We miss the window, or we only get a fraction of the benefit. And the physical symptoms of this misalignment, this friction between our internal pace and the external cycle, they can show up really quickly. And frankly, they're often confusing for people. They start feeling this generalized fatigue, maybe more pronounced now than it was even a few weeks ago in late summer. Or they notice increased trouble settling their mind at night, or just feeling restless even when they try to relax. They wonder, what's wrong with me? Why am I so tired?
And the answer, according to this framework, is that their internal rhythm is out of sync. They're trying to swim upstream against the entire energetic current of the year.
Exactly. They are attempting to push against the tide of the annual system. It's an exhausting battle to fight, which is why the guidance offered in these traditional sources isn't stern or punishing. It's actually presented as this really gentle, almost welcoming invitation. The guidance is crystal clear. If you naturally feel you have less energy as you approach this 20 node as the days shorten, the instruction is explicit. Do not resist that feeling. Do not deny it or try to power through it with caffeine or sheer willpower.
You should embrace it. It's not laziness, it's alignment.
Yeah.
It's your body being intelligent.
It's the deepest form of wisdom speaking directly through your physiology. You absolutely should embrace that feeling of having less outward get-up-and-go energy. See it as an opportunity, a signal to consciously slow down. This really gets to the core contemplation of yin and yang in relation to the environment. It's that simple but profound philosophical truth. There's a time for everything. The system, the cosmos, nature itself is telling us that right now the time is for deep restoration, for resource storage, for gentle contraction inward. It's not the time for maximum outward activation. We're meant to be gathering fuel, consolidating our strength, preparing for the coming period of maximal yin, the deep winter.
Okay, so the cosmos is demanding a slowdown. Our physiology is signaling the need for consolidation and depth rest. But, just knowing this intellectually is one thing. How did traditional cultures actually manage this transition? Surely they weren't all walking around constantly intellectualizing T-nodes. They must have embedded this wisdom into daily life somehow.
They absolutely did, through ritual.
Ah, rituals. Making the invisible visible.
Exactly. Traditional Chinese culture, being deeply rooted in observing these natural cycles, didn't just understand this pivotal time intellectually. They constructed specific, tangible rituals and celebrations around it. These weren't just holidays. They acted as powerful, energetic anchors. They helped entire communities shift their pace, their focus, their energy collectively. These rituals are, in essence, physical manifestations of the abstract energy shift we've been talking about. They make the alignment process concrete and communal.
Okay, so give us an example. What's a key ritual around the autumn equinox that embodies the shift towards yin?
Well, the prime example, and one many people might have heard of, is the Mid-Autumn Festival, often called Moon Festival.
Right, the moon cakes.
The mooncakes, yes. But think about the timing and the focus. It usually happens shortly after the autumn equinox on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month. This is traditionally when the moon is considered to be at its biggest, brightest, and most perfectly full for the entire year. The festival is explicitly about acknowledging and celebrating the ascendancy of the yin principle, embodied by the moon. Remember, the sun, yang, is now hiding, receding, so who takes center stage? The moon, yin, the ultimate yin celestial body, precisely. The mythology often ties back to the story of the moon goddess, Chang'e, who lives on the moon. But the social symbolism, the collective action, is even more potent for our discussion. What do people do during the moon festival? They gather, often with family, specifically to admire the moon. They're actively paying attention to the moon, watching the moon, consciously embracing the beauty and power of yin as we transition away from the dominance of the sun. The moon represents qualities like softness, reflection, intuition, the coolness, the internal life, the receiving principle. Gazing at the full moon is a meditative act of aligning with those yin qualities.
And the mooncakes themselves, you mentioned them, they're famously dense, right? Very rich. How does that specific food reinforce the cosmological idea?
Oh, incredibly well. They are not light and airy summer foods. Mooncakes are typically very dense, very substantial. They're often filled with rich pastes made from things like lotus seeds, red beans, nuts, sometimes even salted egg yolks representing the moon itself. They are physically heavy. Eating them feels grounding. That density represents the consolidating energy of the earth element, which is strongly associated with late summer and autumn in many five-element systems. It symbolizes the condensation of resources after the harvest, and they are perfectly round, symbolizing wholeness, completeness, family unity, and the full gathered cycle of the year's efforts coming to fruition. Unlike the light, watery, expansive foods we crave in summer to dissipate heat, eating this heavy, rich round cake is a direct signal to your body. Time to gather. Time to store. Resources are being concentrated. It's a deliberate, inward-focused, nourishing eating experience.
Wow, that's fascinating. The ritual is literally having people digest the concept of coalescence and resource storage. That's brilliant.
It is. And you see a similar, though perhaps slightly more paradoxical, symbolism in another tradition associated with this time, the Lantern Lighting Festival.
Lanterns. That does sound contradictory. If the mandate is to embrace the growing darkness and the receding yang light, why are people lighting things up?
It seems paradoxical on the surface, but the meaning is quite profound when you consider the timing. During the height of summer, the yang season, external light is everywhere. It's abundant, almost overwhelming. We don't need to generate extra light. We might even seek shade. But now, as the external light, the natural yang qi, begins to noticeably recede and the days shorten, the act of lighting lanterns takes on a completely different intentional meaning. It becomes a powerful symbolic statement.
Okay, so what's the statement?
Ritually, ceremonially lighting lanterns, often beautiful paper lanterns, symbolizes bringing the light inside. It's an active mirroring of the cosmic process. Think of the visual. We are consciously observing the sun going away. We're acknowledging that the external yang energy in the environment is moving inward, condensing, retreating from the surface. By lighting lanterns in our homes or carrying them in quiet processions, we are performing a ritual act that mirrors this exactly. We are symbolically capturing the essence of that receding yang light, the warmth, the clarity, the consciousness, and bringing it inside ourselves.
Internalizing the light, preparing the inner self for the darker, quieter winter months.
Precisely. It's about cultivating inner illumination when the outer world grows dim. It's introspection made visible and communal. Instead of feeling anxious or depressed about the increasing darkness, the cultural wisdom says, no, capture the essence of the light you experienced, the lessons learned, the warmth felt, and stored internally. Keep that inner flame alive through the yin season. It grounds that abstract energy shift into a beautiful, tangible practice.
That's a beautiful reframe, taking charge of the inner light. And this theme of gathering, bringing things inward, it also extends to social interactions, right? You mentioned family.
Absolutely. The sources often describe this period around the equinox and moon festival as a particularly auspicious time for family reunions. But again, the purpose described isn't just casual hanging out. It has a more structured, reflective quality. The explicit purpose mentioned is often to celebrate together, yes, but also to remember and sometimes even formally record all the activity, the effort, the accomplishments, the harvest, literal and metaphorical, that has happened throughout the yang part of the year.
It sounds almost like a collective year-end review, but happening in September instead of December. An energetic accounting.
That's a perfect way to describe it. An energetic accounting. You are consciously bringing all those resources together, the memories, the achievements, the lessons learned from the active period, the key relationships, the actual physical harvest. You gather to reflect on it all. It's another perfect image of yang receding, stopping the constant outward doing, and embracing yin, reflection, recording, consolidation. The highest actions of yin in this context are reviewing what was done, integrating the experiences, and ensuring that the value generated during the active phase isn't just dissipated or forgotten as we move into the quietude of winter.
Making sure the juice from the summer's activity is properly squeezed and stored.
Exactly. And that leads us, naturally, to the most powerful and universal symbol of this entire period, the one that ties the cosmic energy shift directly to physical survival, the autumn harvest itself.
The harvest. Can't get much more fundamental than that.
It really is the ultimate symbol. The harvest represents the final, tangible accounting of the products of all that yang labor, all that outward activity during the growing season. The crops, the results of sun, rain, earth, and human effort are gathered in. But the harvest isn't just the gathering. It's also the preparation, the sorting, the storing, getting everything ready to be used wisely to provide sustenance and survival through the coming autumn and winter months when growth stops. That preparation and storage. That is the ultimate yin activity, preparing for the time of rest, conserving energy, ensuring the resources gathered during the yang phase are available to sustain life through the yin phase. It's the physical manifestation of the entire cosmological downshift.
Wow. So we've got the cosmic shift, the sun hiding, the physiological imperative downshift or face the exhaustion trap, and the cultural rituals, the moon festival, the lanterns, the family gatherings, the harvest, all reinforcing this message of gathering inward, consolidating, and storing. It's incredibly coherent.
It is. The alignment is profound.
Which brings us to maybe the most practical and, dare I say, delicious part of the source's guidance. How do we use food beyond just mooncakes to help calibrate our internal engine with this external shift?
Yes, the culinary wisdom is always fascinating in these systems because it's so direct, so applicable. To help our internal environment really sync up with the external condensing energy of autumn, the sources offer a remarkably simple yet profound internal recipe, or perhaps a food strategy. And the beauty here is that the goal isn't about complex gourmet cooking. It's about fundamental alignment. It's about using food to help our digestive fire and metabolic processes harmonize with the gathering inward theme we've been discussing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the recommended dish or food type? Something simple, you say.
Deceptively simple. The core recommendation is often centered around preparing and eating roasted root vegetables. Just simple roots, carrots, parsnips, sweet potatoes, beets, turnips, maybe some winter squash, too roasted until tender, perhaps lightly seasoned. The sources sometimes mention specific seasonings like little sesame oil, a touch of salt, and maybe some warming spices. It sounds like basic comfort food, doesn't it?
It does. Very grounding, earthy, comforting food. Perfect for a cooler evening. But knowing the system, there has to be a deeper, energetic science behind why roasted roots specifically at this time, right? It can't just be coincidence.
Oh, absolutely not. There's a very specific energetic rationale. We can break down the wisdom of the roasted root vegetable recommendation into two main mechanisms according to the traditional understanding.
Okay, mechanism one.
Mechanism one relates directly to that theme of density and concentration we talked about with coalescence and the mooncakes. What does roasting do to a vegetable, especially a root vegetable? It applies dry heat, which cooks the vegetable, but also drives off excess surface moisture. It concentrates the natural sugars, the starches, the minerals, the inherent energy within the root. Roasted roots become denser, often sweeter, less watery than if they were, say, boiled or steamed. Their juices become more concentrated.
Right, they get that slightly caramelized, condensed quality. So why is that concentration physiologically important for us right now at the autumn transition?
Because physiologically, when we eat something that is already energetically concentrated and dense, it acts as a signal. It encourages our own internal systems, our digestion, our metabolism, our fluid balance, to do the same thing. It encourages us to gather, to slow down the outward expenditure, and to condense our own vital fluids and resources inward. The sources specifically mention the value of the sticky juices that develop in slow-roasted roots at this time of year. Eating these is thought to directly assist our bodies in that internal coalescence process, helping us gather and store our ki or vital energy more effectively. We are literally eating the concentrated essence of earth energy, which helps our own energy settle and gather inward for the coming cold. Remember, in summer, we crave lightness, coolness, and water for expansion and heat dispersal. Now we need density, gentle warmth, and substance for contraction and storage.
That contrast is incredibly clear. Lighter foods for summer expansion, denser foods for autumn contraction. Okay, that makes perfect sense. But you said there were two mechanisms. What's the second one? This is where it gets really interesting, I bet.
It is. The second mechanism takes this beyond just simple nutrition or density and moves into what could be described as a full-blown subtle energy transfer system. It's the idea that these root vegetables at this specific time of year have a unique ability to capture and store the retiring solar energy.
Okay, hold on. Capturing retiring solar energy, the yang-qi descending. Can you break that down? How on earth, literally, does a carrot or a sweet potato supposedly do that?
Literally on Earth is right. It connects directly back to that core concept we started with. The annual yang energy is receding, drawing inward, moving away from the surface and towards the core. Where does it go? According to this cosmology, it moves into the Earth. The Earth element in the five-element theory is the great receiver, the great container and transformer of energy and material substance. Now think about a plant's energy flow during the year. Throughout the yang season, spring-summer, the plant focuses its energy primarily on upward and outward growth, leaves, stems, flowers, fruit. These are all considered more yang expressions, reaching towards the sun.
Right, growth above ground.
Exactly. But as the sun begins its dramatic decline after the equinox, as that external yang energy starts its retreat, it begins to descend. It moves away from the surface atmosphere and starts to penetrate back into the ground, into the soil, into the earth itself. And what's waiting there, perfectly positioned deep in the earth, the roots. Root vegetables, the tubers, the bulbs, the rhizomes, are considered the physical embodiment, the very essence of concentrated earth energy. Because they live in the earth, as the solar energy, the yang-qi, makes its seasonal descent, these roots have a special opportunity. They essentially soak up and store this descending, retiring solar warmth and vitality before the deep cold of winter truly sets in and locks everything down. They are, in a way, storing the memory of the summer sun for us within their very substance.
Wow. Okay, so the idea is the yang energy goes down into the earth, and the roots, being right there, absorb it like sponges.
That's the concept. They capture this specific quality of descending yang. It's not the same as the expansive yang of summer. It's yang energy that is gathering, concentrating, preparing for storage.
So then, when we eat these roasted root vegetables, which we've already established are physically dense and concentrated, we're not just getting vitamins and minerals, we're also ingesting this captured, descending yang energy.
Precisely. We are facilitating an energetic transfer. The sources suggest that this special quality inherent in the roots at this time, their ability to have absorbed and contained the descending yang, is literally transferred to us when we digest them. And what does this enable our bodies to do? It helps our own physiology perform the exact same energetic function more easily, drawing our own yang energy inward, away from the surface, where it might dissipate or make us vulnerable to cold, and consolidating it safely within our core, storing it for the winter. It's thought to help prevent that feeling of energy leaking out, which is seen as a major cause of fatigue and susceptibility to external cold invasion during this transitional autumn period.
Okay, this is fascinating. It completely transforms how you'd look at a simple plate of roasted carrots and parsnips. It's not just dinner, it's like an energetic alignment tool, a sophisticated transfer device, as you said.
It really is. It becomes the ultimate example of how this entire system, the cosmology, the understanding of physiology, the cultural practices, and the culinary wisdom, all works together in perfect, elegant alignment. Everything points in the same direction.
And what about the seasonings mentioned? Sesame oil, salt, warming spices. Are they just for flavor, or do they play an energetic role too?
Definitely an energetic role. Nothing is random in these recommendations. Sesame oil, for instance, is considered quite nourishing and has a slightly heavy, rich quality. Energetically, it supports the lubrication and nourishment aspects associated with yin. As the weather cools and gets drier in autumn, sesame oil helps prevent the body from becoming too dry internally, keeping tissues supple. Salt, in moderation, is associated with the water element and the kidneys in Chinese medicine, which are crucial for storing our deep reserves, our jing or essence. A little salt helps consolidate energy downwards and inwards, and the warming spices.
Like ginger, maybe cinnamon, cloves. I imagine those are pretty straightforward. They're there to add warmth and counter the growing external cold, right?
Yes, but it's a bit more nuanced. They add warmth, yes, but their primary role here is often seen as preventing internal stagnation that can sometimes happen as the body naturally slows down and contracts in response to the yin season. As we embrace the yin imperative to slow down and gather inward, our circulation can sometimes become a bit sluggish. Things can get stuck. The warming spices ginger, cinnamon, perhaps a touch of cardamom or star anise act as gentle internal activators. They keep the blood and qi moving smoothly, ensuring that the resources we are storing, those concentrated juices and that captured yang energy, remain mobile and available, rather than just pooling and becoming inert or cold inside the body. They protect the system during this crucial downshift by maintaining gentle internal movement.
So they ensure that consolidation doesn't become stagnation. They keep the inner home fires burning gently, even as we're banking the embers for winter.
Beautifully put. That's exactly the idea. It highlights that this alignment isn't just a passive process of slowing down. It's an active conscious calibration, using specific foods and seasonings to support the body's intelligent adaptation to the changing season. You don't just think about yin. You eat the root vegetable that has synergized with the descending yang, seasoned in a way that supports storage and healthy internal flow.
This is incredibly rich. So let's try to synthesize this. This 2-week period, starting right around the autumn equinox, September 23rd or so, it's really presented not as a time to dread the coming winter, but as this wide-open invitation, an opportunity to consciously embrace the growing annual yin, #outro. It's a chance, maybe even a mandate, to use this ancient wisdom to actively improve our sleep, to head off that cycle of seasonal exhaustion before it starts, and to begin that deep internal process of gathering and storing our resources, which is absolutely necessary to navigate the winter months with resilience and vitality.
Absolutely. And what I find continually fascinating about systems like this, from traditional Chinese cosmology and medicine, is how they create this unified field theory for living. They don't separate the stars from the soup. They provide this seamless bridge between a massive astronomical event, the sun crossing the celestial equator and beginning its descent, and the most mundane, everyday acts of our lives. What we choose to eat for dinner, how we gather with our families, whether we light a candle in the evening. They give us specific, actionable instructions, the rituals, the dietary recommendations that ground that huge cosmic event in a way that directly benefits our individual health, our well-being, our longevity. It just shows how profoundly interconnected our internal world, our physiology, is meant to be with the grand external cycles of nature.
A truly holistic perspective. So we've journeyed from the cosmos down to the root cellar, exploring this universal mandate to shift gears from the outward action of summer to the internal rest and consolidation of autumn, from yang expenditure to yin storage. As you, our listeners, move through these next couple of weeks, maybe you'll notice that natural pull, that feeling of wanting to slow down more acutely now. The invitation from this deep dive is to resist that modern reflex to just power through. Instead, maybe consider this question. What one specific conscious activity could you adopt in the coming 2 weeks to personally acknowledge and honor this profound, universal, seasonal shift? It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it is lighting a small lantern or candle in the evening as a symbol of tending your inner light. Maybe it's taking 10 minutes to formally jot down and appreciate your accomplishments from the summer. Or maybe it's as simple and as deeply wise as mindfully preparing and savoring a dish of roasted root vegetables, perhaps seasoned with a few warming spices, knowing you're participating in this ancient rhythm of cosmic and culinary calibration. What will your active alignment be?